Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Taisa's Dibra Maschel, Yeser al Kain Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Let's begin. Yeser al Kain Amar Rabbi Yehuda. In the Gemara, we explained that the reason why the Brisa says Zui Rishus HaYachid, this is a Rishus HaYachid, is to tell us this is a Rishus HaYachid. The examples that were presented in the Brisa, and not the case that Rabbi Yehuda says is a Rishus HaYachid. And then we quoted this opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. We presented the second half of the Brisa where Rabbi Yehuda is mentioned because that's what was relevant to us, where it says Yeser al Kain Amar Rabbi Yehuda. More than Rabbi Yehuda said in the first part of the Brisa, he said in the second part of the Brisa that if a person has a house on each side of the Rosh Hashanah, he's allowed to carry in between because Rabbi Yehuda holds that two walls makes a Rosh Hashanah, and all he needs is an eruv, a sign to indicate that it's a Rosh Hashanah, either a lechi on each side of the house or a kaira on each side of the houses. And that's why the Brisa said Zui Rosh Hashanah to tell us the cases that were mentioned in the Brisa are Rosh Hashanah, but not what Rabbi Yehuda says is the Rosh Hashanah, which is that two walls alone make a Rosh Hashanah. So there's going to be three parts to Tosfos. First, Tosfos will quote the Brisa in its entirety, the whole Brisa of Yeser al Kain, also the Reisha, and explain what's the Yeser al Kain, what's more in the Seifa over the Reisha. Then Tosfos will ask, why did we present the Brisa with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda if it seems that there's a Mishnah with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda as well, and we should choose a Mishnah over a Brisa. And the last part of Tosfos, he's going to ask, why do we need the words Zuhi Rishus HaYachid to tell us that the case of Rabbi Yehuda is not a Rishus HaYachid? We already know that for the Seifa of the Brisa. The Seifa tells us that a road that's open at both ends is a Rishus HaRabim. So clearly the Brisa disagrees with Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's a Rishus HaYachid since it has two walls. So why do we need the words Zuhi Rishus HaYachid to exclude of the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? So let's see Tosfos inside. Hachi Misnisa B'Tesefta Perek Zayin Erevin. This is what it says in the Tosefta and Perek Zayin Erevin. Echad Chaloin Shebein Beis Chatzeris, whether it's a window between 2 yards, ve'echad Chaloin Shebein Shnei Batan, or whether it's a window between two houses, chulu, etc. And these words of Tosfos are erased by some Mefarshim because they don't relate to the part that he's going to explain. So we'll just go straight to the next part and explain that. Uksharim, this is the beginning of the Brisa that was quoted in the Gemara. Uksharim and bridges, unafashis and mausoleums, they also have a roof like a bridge. Rosh Hashanah, Mekayr, and Rosh Hashanah that has a roof over it. Metaltal and Tachtav b'Shabbos, a person can carry underneath it on Shabbos more than 4 amos, because it's a Rosh Hashanah. Div Rabbi Yehuda, these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Yeser al Kain Amar Rabbi Yehuda chulu. Rabbi Yehuda said even more than this. So the ratio is that a person can carry under an area that has a roof. And the Seif is even more than this, that two walls alone already turn an area from Rosh Hashanah into Rosh Hashanah. So Tosfos now is going to explain, after he quoted the whole Brisa, what's the Chiddush and the second teaching of Rabbi Yehuda over the first. That therefore we say Yeser al Kain. It's even more. Pirish Yeser al Kain b'Shnei Batim Mishnei Tzidei Rosh Hashanah. The meaning of what's more that a person can carry between two houses is the afal gav, the leka lemeimer pi tikar yerd v'seisem. Even though we're unable to say that the edges of the roof go down and close off the area, kamay bigsharim v'neshfashes, the way we say it by bridges, v'neshfashes and mausoleums, Rosh Hashanah Mekayra, and a roofed Rosh Hashanah, the ratio of the ratio. The reason why the person is allowed to carry under the area that has a roof and it's no longer Rosh Hashanah is because we view it as if the sides of the roof go down and they close off the area. So it comes out that the area now has 4 walls, which makes it into Rosh Hashanah. And that's what's more so in the second case, that even though we cannot say pitik or yard v'seisim, they're just 2 houses, one on each side of the road. There's no roof. Afilu hachi, nevertheless, noisev and noisen be'emsa, a person is allowed to carry in between the 2 houses. The kasavar Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds beis mechitzas teiraisa, 2 walls are minatero. It makes an area to be a Rosh Hashanah. Kedamar me perikol gagas, like we say in perikol gagas, in Erev and Adav Tzadikei Amud Aleph. So Tosfos says over here is, he quotes the Brisa in its entirety and explains what's the Chiddush and the Seifa over the Reisha. And the Reisha, Rabbi Yehuda is saying that 4 walls makes a Rosh Hashanah through Pi Tikra Yerd V'Seisim. And the Seifa is saying that 2 walls is enough to turn an area into Rosh Hashanah, because that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that a Rosh Hashanah consists of 2 walls. And here we mentioned from Erevin, and throughout Tosfos we're going to mention a number of things from Erevin, 3 sources from Erevin, Daf Vav Amud Beis, Daf Yud Amud Aleph, and Daf Tzadikei Amud Aleph. Now we'll move to the second part of Tosfos, asking why do we present a Brisa if we have a Mishnah with the same teaching from Rabbi Yehuda. V'im Tamer, and if one asks, why doesn't he bring over here Masnisin, the Mishnah, the Cholgagas of Cholgagas, where it says over there, the Ktani Hasam, it says over there, Va'id Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said more than this. Ma'arvin l'maveh mefulish. We can make an error from maveh mefulish. So it seems like we have the same exact teaching. Rabbi Yehuda says that if there's a maveh mefulish, a road that's open at both ends, you can make an error and carry there. Which the way we understand it is that since it has houses along both sides, it's a Rosh Hashanah, and all that's needed is an eruv as an indication to show others that it's a Rosh Hashanah. So why didn't we bring that brisa? So Tosfos gives two answers. The Yishlemer can answer the masnissen ikal of frusha, that the Mishnah we could explain the ma'arvin, that we make an erev b'tzuras Pesach with the shape of a door. In the Mishnah, it doesn't say how the erev is made, what it looks like. In the brisa, it says clearly it's either a lechi or a kaira. However, the Mishnah doesn't say what the erev looks like, so we can interpret it to be telling us that the erev is made with the shape of a door, which the shape of a door is considered a wall, because Savr Gimel Mechitzas Daraisa, and he holds that 3 walls are Minatero, what makes a Rishas HaYachid. So from the Mishnah, we don't get the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that 2 walls makes a Rishas HaYachid. We can mistakenly understand it to be telling us that the Erev is a Tzuras Pesach, and since there are now 3 walls, that's why the person could carry there, because it's a Rishas HaYachid with 3 walls. That's why we bring the brisa, where by the brisa, the erev consists of just a lechi or a kera, which does not accomplish to create a wall. So over there we see clearly that Rabbi Yehuda holds that 2 walls makes a Rishas HaYachid. So that's one answer of Tosfos, that only in the brisa do we see the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that 2 walls turns an area from a Rishas HaRabim to a Rishas HaYachid. Inami, or also, Hava Amino, we would say the masnisin ayri b'mavay am foolish l'Rishas HaRabim, that the Mishnah is referring to a mavay that's open to the Rishas HaRabim of ein Rishas HaRabim meveres l'seicha, but the Rishas HaRabim doesn't pass into it. An example of that in Tosfos on the Vavam Beis in Erevin, there's a picture of it. It's basically there are 2 roads parallel to one another. Those are the main roads that the public are using, and then there's a mavim of foolish in between. It's open to both of them, but it's not used extensively. It's not the main road. It's used somewhat, but not significantly. So we can explain that the Mishnah is referring to such a road. Such a road, 2 walls will turn it into a Rishas HaYachid, but not a true Rishas HaRabim. A true Rishas HaRabim won't turn into Rishas HaYachid by 2 walls alone. And lahachi maisi abraisa the Yesher Alkein, and that's why he brings the brisa of Yesher Alkein that we quoted in the Gemara, that afilu Rishas HaRabim meveres, that even if the Rishas HaRabim passes through it, metaltlan de lechi or kera, you could carry through a lechi or a kera alone. And how do we know that the Gemara, that the brisa is referring to a Rishas HaRabim, a mavim and foolish, that Rishas HaRabim meveres ba? So that we're going to mention later in Tosfos, but Tosfos discusses that in Erevin. So that's the advantage of the brisa, number 1, in the first answer, because it's clearly talking about 2 walls and not 3 walls. And number 2, it's talking about a true and complete Rishas HaRabim, one that is a mavim and foolish that the public are using. In the picture that Tosfos presents on the Vavam Beis in Erevin is that there are 2 public plazas that are used by the public, and in between is the mavim and foolish. So that's going to be used on a very large, extensively, and very much, since it's the only way to get from one of the public plazas to the other. So that road is used, and it's considered a Rishas HaRabim, that a mavim foolish, that the Rishas HaRabim is a veres ba. Mishum the shtei mechitzes deiraisa, because he holds the reason why a person can carry through a lechi and kera alone, even though it's a true Rishas HaRabim, is because 2 walls are minateru, what makes an area to be a Rishas HaYachid. Now Tosfos is going to answer a question. He's not going to ask it in a question form. He's going to say afal gav, even though there's an issue over here, he's going to say nevertheless it's not a problem. That's why it'll be in purple. But it's a question that he's addressing. Afal gav the perikama the Erevin, and even though in the first parak of Erevin, on the Mishnah on Daf Beis, it says that if the opening of a mavui is larger, is wider than 10 amas, it needs to be made smaller in order for a person to be permitted to carry in the mavui. And Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. So the Gemara on Daf Yud says that mashma the l'chol yeser lo yihite Rabbi Yehuda ella ad yud gimel amma v'shlish. It indicates that at the most Rabbi Yehuda only permitted up to a 13 and a third amas. The Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda says is of the opinion that if it's 10 amas, it doesn't have to be made smaller. But even he agrees that it can be wider than 13 and a third amas. It's only up to 13 and a third amas. Past that, it has to be made smaller. So that shows us that an area will not turn into Rishas HaYachid by having 2 walls alone. So how does this fit with what we're saying, that from the brisa we see clearly that even a complete and total Rishas HaRabim will become a Rishas HaYachid by 2 walls alone? If that was true, then why is there a limit that the opening of the mavei has to be narrower than 13 and a third amas? So Tosfos says, Hainu mid'Rabbanan, this is only mid'Rabbanan, that it has to be made smaller. Of a mid'Oraisa, but minatera, afilu bereich of yudvav amas, even if it's 16 amas wide, the talpul in a person is allowed to carry. The Isle, because he holds Beis Mechitzas Deraisa, 2 walls are minatera, what makes a Rishas HaYachid. So therefore, if there are 2 walls, it's irrelevant how wide the Rishas HaRabim is, the person is allowed to carry there, because 2 walls are what makes a Rishas HaYachid. And now Tosfos is going to support this point, that it must be that it's only midrabanan and not minatera. We must say that Rabbi Yehuda is referring to a complete Rishas HaRabim that the public are passing through, like we mentioned before. It's the 2 plazas on each side and the mavim and foolish between. The Erevin, like it's proven in the first parak of Erevin, and that's a Tosfos on Davav Amud Beis. Gabe Ketzed Ma'arvim Rosh Hashanah, where the discussion in the Gemara over there is how do we make an error for Rosh Hashanah? V'sham Pirashti over there I explain. So what Tosfos is saying here, it comes out that he's bringing out 2 points. The first point that he's saying over here is that for sure it's only Midrabanan that has to be made smaller than 13 and a third amas. And Midaraisa would be a Rosh Hashanah, because Rabbi Yehuda holds his opinion that 2 walls makes a Rosh Hashanah, even by a complete and total Rosh Hashanah, what's the definition of a complete and total Rosh Hashanah if the public are using it extensively? How do we know that that's the case? Because he explained it in Eruvin, so he's not explaining it here. So this answers to us 2 points. Number one, who said the Bryce is referring to a mavam foolish that's used extensively by the public? So Tosfos says it's proven in Eruvin. He explains it over there. And number two, who said that it's only midirabanan that it has to be smaller than 13 and a third amas, but minater would be a Rosh Hashanah? Tosfos says because if a person could carry in a mavam foolish that's used extensively by the public, even if it's less than 13 and a third amas, that indicates that any area that's a Rosh Hashanah, a total Rosh Hashanah, could be turned into Rosh Hashanah by 2 walls, because a Rosh Hashanah that's 16 amas wide and one that's narrower than 13 and a third amas but used extensively by the public are equally considered a Rosh Hashanah. The 16 amas is not considered any more of a Rosh Hashanah than the 13 and a third amas that's used extensively by the public. And if in this one 2 walls makes it a Rosh Hashanah, it must be the same over here as well. And this that a person has to make it smaller must be that it's only midirabanan. One thing that's not answered over here is why midirabanan doesn't even be made smaller if 2 walls makes it a Rosh Hashanah. Tosfos doesn't explain that. The point that Tosfos wants to get across over here, what's relevant for our understanding, is 2 things. Number one, the Bryce is certainly talking about a complete and total Rosh Hashanah, and he says he explained that already in Eruvin. And number two, that the problem with the 16 amas is only midirabanan but not minatera. And how do we know that? Because by the 13 and a third amas, we prove that it's talking about one that was used extensively by the public, and that's a complete and total Rosh Hashanah. So if that turns into Rosh Hashanah through 2 walls, it must be the same as true by the 16 amas wide Rosh Hashanah. And this that a person can nevertheless not carry there until he makes it narrower must be an issue that's only midirabanan. Now Tosfos moves on to the third part of Tosfos, which is a question. V'im Taimer, if one asks, but from this that it says in the Sefer, the Mavoisam of Foloshim, that roads that are open at both ends, Haver Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah, Shamin and Shapir, we know well, Lafukim Mid Rabbi Yehuda, to exclude what Rabbi Yehuda says, the Isle that he holds, Beis Mechitzis Deraisa, the 2 walls are Minatera, what makes a Rosh Hashanah. We already know to exclude Rabbi Yehuda, because the Bryce is telling us that a Mavim of Foolish is the Rosh Hashanah, even though there are 2 walls. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, Muvayisam Ufalashis, roads that are open at both ends, Lehava Rosh Hashanah, they're not a Rosh Hashanah, Kevin the Ikash Mechitzis, since there are 2 Mechitzis, there are 2 walls, the houses that line up alongside it. So why do we need the extra words, Zuhi Rosh Hashanah? So the answer Tosfos is going to give is going to change the whole understanding of this part of the Gemara. We could say, from the Sefer we would not know to exclude Rabbi Yehuda. And the reason is the Hava Mina, because we would think, and this would be a mistaken thinking, and we'll explain what comes out at the end of Tosfos. Time of Rabbi Yehuda, that the reason of Rabbi Yehuda is Mishum de Kasavra, because he holds a Lechi v'Keira Mishum Echitza. When Rabbi Yehuda says that a Lechi or Keira allows the person to carry, it's because Rabbi Yehuda holds that a Lechi or Keira create a wall. Where do we find such a thing? So Tosfos supports this. The Ikamanda Savra Hachi bePerakama de Eruvin. There is an opinion that says this in the first parak of Eruvin. So now we complete the answer. Lahachi Itzruch Lamasnisin. That's why the Mishnah needs to say Zui Rosh Hashanah. That's why we need to say in the Brisa Zui Rosh Hashanah Gemara. This is a complete Rosh Hashanah. Lemutid Rabbi Yehuda, to exclude this of Rabbi Yehuda, the Lehav Rosh Hashanah. That's not a Rosh Hashanah. So what comes out over here is, we'll explain, there's 2 points that end up coming out over here. The actual opinion of Rabbi Yehuda is that 2 walls makes a Rosh Hashanah. The Lechi and Kara are just an indication. So that opinion of Rabbi Yehuda is actually excluded from the Sefer, because it says that such a road is a Rosh Hashanah. So why do we say that the word Zui Rosh Hashanah exclude Rabbi Yehuda? So the explanation is it doesn't exclude Rabbi Yehuda. It excludes the mistaken understanding of Rabbi Yehuda, that the Lechi or Kara serve as a wall. And therefore it says Zui Rosh Hashanah. This is a Rosh Hashanah because it has the necessary number of walls. But this is not, because although it has 2 walls plus a Lechi or Kara that want to turn it to have the right amount of walls, it's not going to be Rosh Hashanah. And like Tosfos says in the last words, the Loi have Rosh Hashanah. Why not? The Lechi v'Kara loichashev mechitza, because the Lechi and the Kara are not considered a wall. So it comes out that from the Sefer we actually do exclude the real opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that 2 walls makes a Rosh Hashanah. What the Gemara means to say, Zui Rosh Hashanah excludes the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, it means exclude the mistaken opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that we would interpret it that it has the necessary amount of walls because the Lechi or Kera are considered a wall. And the Brisa is telling us this is a Rishus HaYachid because it has the proper number of walls through the proper way. But not the case of Rabbi Yehuda, where the walls are completed through a Lechi or a Keira. So we have over here the 3 points of Tosfos. Number one, Tosfos quoted the Brisa in its entirety and explained what's the Yeser Al Kain and the Seifa over the Reisha. Number two, Tosfos gives 2 reasons why we chose a Brisa with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda over the Mishnah with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And the basic point is that only in the Brisa do we see clearly that 2 walls turns a true Rishus HaRabim into a Rishus HaYachid. From the Mishnah, it could be that it's 3 walls. Number 2, it could be that it's not a true Rishus HaRabim. The Brisa brings out that 2 walls are enough, and even a true Rishus HaRabim that's used significantly and extensively by the public. And the third part of Tosfos is that when we say Zui Rishus HaYachid excludes the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, it means that it excludes a mistake in our understanding of the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, but the actual opinion of Rabbi Yehuda is really excluded from the Seifa.